opportunities that this country had for me, I never had to worry that ICE agents were going to barge into my classroom, pull my brother and I out of our seats, and say we're never going to see our parents again. That is a reality of the world that we're in right now. That speaks to a bully and somebody who is working hard to divide us. And to me, that's just not who we are. So I'm running for governor to make a difference right now, to change systems, to fight for every single resident, and to fight for what residents need in this state.
Thank you so much for that great introduction. Sammy's going to be asking the first question, and then I'll ask the question following.
Yeah, thank you
Great.
so much, Mayor. So last year, the reported incidents on anti-Muslim discrimination and attacks in the United States rose by about 70% compared to the same period the year before. CAIR documented almost 5,000 complaints of anti-Muslim and anti-Palestinian acts, up from 2,900 the year before. This surge has largely been attributed to the heightened rate of Islamophobia and ongoing in the Middle East. In light of this, how will you ease tensions and protect the Muslim community, this very vulnerable community? We're in a state where we have one of the largest Arab and Muslim populations in the country.
Well, thank you for that. And first, I think it's important to speak out, right? I say it. Listen, as a black man, I understand in ways, right, the what this country stands for and does in many instances, and the need to speak up and talk about the fact that every single one of our residents needs to be respected, and certainly needs to be free from harassment, intimidation. Certainly, what we're seeing rise, quite frankly, with the most powerful person in the world leading the way in many instances, right, as the president of the United States. So for me, it starts as governor saying that is not who we are. It's what I've always done as a teacher. I can tell you the most important charge that we have is to make sure every student in our classroom feels safe and supported and loved. Beyond that, we hope they learn a little something, right? But it's about understanding that the most important charge I will have as governor is standing up for every single resident. Now, yes, it means I will have an attorney general who is aggressively enforcing our state laws on non-discrimination. It means that we are pursuing, through, again, legal challenges and law enforcement, any steps necessary to keep our community safe and to make sure that people are engaging in intimidation tactics. And certainly as it continues to grow in the threat of action and violence, we want to make sure we protect against that. It's making sure that, again, we create opportunities, right, to educate and to allow folks, the rights to express views and to be out there and to share that and the frustration that exists without the fear of retribution and attack. All of these things matter, and as governor, I'll lead the way. Right? I understand what this means. It's an experience that is not far removed from me, right? May have been different words that I was called as a kid. It may have been slightly different experiences that I had, but I understand the challenges and certainly, want to make sure I protect every single resident.
Great. Thank you for answering that question. I wanted to get into recent events that have happened with the arrest of Mahmoud Khalil on campus. So, as you mentioned, ICE is a real threat to our livelihoods here in the state of New Jersey as well. What concrete steps will you take to protect the safety and First Amendment rights of Muslim students and other pro-Palestinian views on campus? How will you ensure they are safeguarded from unjust actions, both by federal authorities and university administrations, as our rights to free speech and to protest are continuously being attacked, as we're seeing in the last few months and year?
Yeah. Well, first, and I want to talk about the concrete things that I know I will do as governor. But first, it does start again with understanding that, yes, at the youngest of levels, they're coming to classrooms to rip kids out of seats. But as you note, right, on our college campuses with our students, with professors and others who speak up and raise issues and voice their opinions, they're coming after all of us. But certainly they are targeting at the federal level and with ICE, they are targeting those whose views they don't agree with, those folks who they think, maybe aren't the right people to be in this country or whatever else their crazy and asinine thinking is. We know that they're taking these steps right now, and it's wrong on every level. So let me say again, as governor, here's what I will do. Number one, making sure we use a strong attorney general who's going to fight to protect New Jersey laws, right? Just because they enact or sign some piece of paper at the federal level, that does not, pardon the pun, trump our New Jersey laws. And we want to make sure we're enforcing them. Number two, not cooperating with ICE in any way, right? Not making sure we know one of the big things we've got to do is safeguard data and information, because right now we're seeing, especially at the federal level, they're using a lot of data from a lot of different agencies and entities to target folks. We've got to make sure that we are restricting and holding back any data that, again, can be misused to, again, target our residents. That's a huge piece of it. We've got to make sure when you talk about what we can do, including on our college and university campuses right here in state, we've got to set clear guidelines and expectations mutually agreed upon with broad input as to what the parameters are to allow folks to be able to express frustrations, to be able to voice dissent, to be able to organize, mobilize, rally, protest, all the things that are protected in this country. But we want to make sure there's clear guidelines that are there in every single one of our universities and colleges so that they cannot, after the fact, come in and use either made-up reasons or very arbitrary indicators to come in and say they're taking this action or that action, which, of course, we know is going to be punitive to silence folks who are not in the positions of power and therefore are trying to work outside of systems of power. So, as governor, making sure we've got those guidelines in place, making sure, again, that has broad input to talk about how we're going to express and voice our opinions in all of the spaces in which we're trying to do so. When you have that in place, it's much harder for a university after the fact to then step in and, again, arbitrarily say somebody was acting outside of bounds. So I think that's a huge way that we can protect our students and our faculty at our colleges and universities, give that guidance that's needed, use the law with the Attorney General to protect folks and their freedom of speech and First Amendment rights, and not cooperating with ICE in any way to share data and information, and, of course, engage in the tactics that they're using to scare folks and to, quite frankly, round folks up and deport them.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, speaking about universities, last week, Jacob Beecher was sentenced to 6 months in prison for committing a federal hate crime when he vandalized the Center for Islamic Life at Rutgers University back in April 2024. On the morning of Eid, this house of worship on campus essentially was vandalized. And so you, as being a lifelong educator, what are your thoughts about the rise of anti-Arab hate, anti-Muslim hate, anti-Palestinian hate in our schools? And also, what would you do to combat discrimination in schools, on campuses, even at our places of worship? What would you do to combat hate?
Yeah, well, thank you for the question. And I have to say, I apologize, I got a little noise behind me here, but look, I say this, it starts with having those conversations to, again, create the framework where we can have conversations, we can have dialogue, we can express dissent, we can voice our frustrations, we can protest injustice, we can certainly speak to appalling conditions and actions and all of the things that I think, right now folks are getting in trouble with, or getting penalized for, or getting prosecuted for. They're forms of expression of dissent, right? They're forms of trying to push back against a system where the system doesn't allow the power to be able to evenly compete, and therefore people are using tactics that they feel can get attention and be heard around issues that are so important. So understanding all of that, though, we've got to work with our college and universities. We've got to work with K-12, everybody, to have conversations around what does the structure look like to engage in these conversations. Again, broadly having them because we want to make sure we've got that input from everybody to be able to design that framework. But understanding that doing that on the upfront is how we protect folks after the fact, right? I can tell you as that high school teacher, right, the first thing we do every year is we sit down and create classroom norms, right? We lay all those out. We create safe, welcoming spaces where we can have important and sometimes difficult conversations. We understand and have some broader community agreement to those, right? But then we can clearly understand that even in tense moments, even when people take actions that we may not like, we can refer back and say, hey, wait a minute. But this is a way we all agree that we could express ourselves and communicate and, of course, share our differences of opinion. That is important. Right now, we are living in a system where, because that does not exist, folks in positions of power can utilize that power and lack of guardrails or framework or guidelines to say, hey, we're taking an action that often then we would consider inappropriate and maybe over the top, because nobody, again, had that framework to work from. That's the start place, and I've got that experience in doing it as an educator myself.
Thank you so much, Mayor. An important issue to Muslims is the freedom of speech, especially nowadays. There is a bill currently in legislation for anti-Semitism, which all Muslims believe that anti-Semitism should be fought just like Islamophobia is fought. However, this particular definition includes an IRA, the International Holocaust definition, which includes any criticism of Israel. Would you be willing and able to veto a bill like that that would silence effectively the Muslims in New Jersey from advocating for Palestine and calling out all the issues with Israel, just like we would call out all the issues with our own country? Is that something that you would stand for First Amendment, or what is your stance on that? Please,
Yeah,
please, pretty direct answer.
Yeah, sure. My stance is, I don't support it, right? I don't support codifying into law a protection of one group, versus another, right? I think we want to make sure we're standing up for every single resident in this state. I want to make sure that everyone is free from discrimination and certainly the harm that comes with it. That is where I stand, and that's what we should be fighting for. I'll also say this: listen, right now, as you heard me when I started, I would hope that people around the world, when they look at a Donald Trump, right, they separate Donald Trump, from some of us here in this country. I would hope that when they think or criticize America, they realize that's different than criticizing me or it's people, right? There are distinctions here, and you can offer criticisms of varying sections or people from a space or anything else with valid reasons, right? But that doesn't mean you paint that broad brush, tie it all together to say if you're criticizing one, you're criticizing all or everything. That doesn't work, right? If that's the case, none of us can say anything, right? I think in the time we're living through right now in this country, we can see firsthand that there are separations there, right? And valid criticism that should be leveled, especially against governments when they act inappropriately. And that does not mean that we're criticizing folks beyond that government and certainly the actions that they're taking. So short answer, you asked very directly. I said, no, I don't support it, right? I don't support it for all the reasons I just described.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate that stance. As of recently, this is something that we've been dealing with in our community for the last 48 hours. It's been a real tragedy that we've all been dealing with. We just lost a 14-year-old boy, American citizen by the name of Amir Rabi, who was just shot and killed by the Israeli military. And we wanted to know, as governor, what would your statement be today if you were, and as mayor, you still can make a statement as far as to the recent murder of Amir Rab.
Yeah, so I'd say this, right, which is what I do say. I say it as a parent of two young boys, right? My heart goes out, right? My heart goes out. I know right now with just the ongoing loss of life and the unnecessary loss of life that we see in the West Bank, Palestine, and just terms of the impact that that's having on so many. It's wrong, right? It's unconscionable, and we need to speak out against it. And I say this, it touches home when you say, hey, listen, you've got such a young boy, right, who's lost his life. That could be any of our kids, right? And so I say to anyone, no matter what the conversation is that we're having, right, and we can have these broader political discussions, as the previous question you guys were just asking. We can criticize nations, we can criticize actions that are being taken. Never should we condone, right, where our children are being killed, right? Never should we condone the massive loss of life that we're seeing, and just accept it as even if you agree with one side, like as an acceptable loss, or accept it even in the context of just the harm that it's doing, right? It is wrong on every level. And I think we all have a duty to say that, and we all have a duty to do something to try and stop it, right? And to say, let's recognize the moment that we're in right now in history. Let's recognize that we will be judged on our ability to speak up and say, this is wrong. And let's right now say, how do we move forward with ending this state of violence that is costing so many innocent folks their lives? It's unacceptable.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, shifting gears a bit, we really truly believe that representation matters. And we want to ask you, as your time as mayor and as a leader of NJEA, how have you brought forward representation of Muslims in your leadership roles, and how would you commit to ensure that there's Muslim representation in your cabinet? Would you commit to ensuring that there's a Muslim cabinet member? And also, secondly, the second part of the question, as representative of the New Jersey Muslim Lawyers Association, we also see the need for diversity on our bench. How would you commit to ensure that there's Muslim representation on the bench? And would you commit to appointing the first Muslim on the New Jersey Supreme Court?
Yeah, well, thank you for the question. And certainly, when we talk about positions like Supreme Court appointments, when we talk about cabinet appointments, I absolutely do agree and think we should meet diversity in those positions. I think that matters. But I also want to just take that a step further and more broadly. In all positions, when you talk about practices and systems of hiring, we need to make changes, right? I say that. Let me give you an example. As president of the New Jersey Education Association, I am the first Black male ever to serve in this role, right? We have hundreds of years of history. I'm the first Black male ever to serve in this role, right? So I understand that systems are set up to work the way systems were designed, and they continue to this day. So for me, it's about changing those. As a president now in this role, what I've done is say, hey, wait a minute. For our interview process, right, for our application, let's look at where we're sending this. Let's look at the questions we're asking. Let's look at the things we're valuing when we score this. Let's look at the ways that we're interpreting and analyzing what we think are strengths, because oftentimes we have built into these systems biases, intentional or otherwise, that are keeping people excluded and allowing us to hide behind, well, we're following this process or that process, and these are the candidates that we end up getting, and this is what we keep doing. I've seen that and I've lived that firsthand. And now I've worked to make changes in our systems that have effectuated change, when we have diversified all of our hiring practices at NJA. And I say it there because we employ almost 450 folks. So there's a broad reach there, and in terms of the opportunity and ability to do so. Fortunately, as Mayor Montclair, I'm not responsible for any of the hiring and direct pieces, but I can certainly say that in the work that we did there, we also worked to make sure we were diversifying in terms of the policies we were enacting on the legislative side of things in terms of what was permitted and allowed. So look, for me, I say this: yes, representation at the levels you described matters, right? Supreme Court, yes. And you ask for a commitment, yes. We've got to make sure it's diverse, and we want to bring folks perspectives, right, to the bench. Do I want to make sure cabinet is diverse as well, and having somebody who's Muslim on my cabinet? Yes. But I will just again reaffirm that we've got to go deeper than that, right? That doesn't just, putting someone there doesn't all of a sudden make sure we've got broad representation at all levels of government. It means changing systems, right? The systems have to be analyzed. The systems have to be changed if we want to see that holistic approach, quite frankly, that lasts longer than my 8 years as governor, right? Because we know that after that time ends, we want to make sure the systems still continue that allow for a diverse not just cabinet, but employment across state government.
Thank you so much, Mayor. We're just about to hit the hour. And so as just a final quick hit question, and then we will pass it back to you to just make closing comments. But with New Jersey being a majority minority state with a diverse Muslim community of people from around the world, and especially many people of different legal statuses, would you support the New Jersey Immigrant Trust Act, which is
Yes.
Okay,
I mean, absolutely.
If I could just explain it real quickly.
Unbelievably frustrating to me. It's frustrating that we're still talking about this and it hasn't happened yet, right? It's ridiculous. So yeah, listen, as governor, I will use executive order. Absolutely, yes. I will use attorney general. When I talk about I'm going to stand up for every single person, I'm going to stand up for every single person. But quite frankly, I'm also going to put the pressure on the legislature, because do your job. Like, let's get this going here. We got to codify these things into law. We know, as my previous answer, we want things to be longstanding, right? Not just at the whim of a governor, whomever else is in here. So it's just unacceptable that we have not done it already. But yes, as governor, absolutely, I would do that, right? Immediately.
Thank you so much for your time. If you have any closing remarks, you have 60 seconds to do so. We were very happy to have you on. We very much appreciate you taking the time and being accommodating with our schedule. We yield this last minute to you.
Okay, great. Well, listen, thank you again for having me. I appreciate it. And I just say this, look, I know the times that we're living right now. These are just so unsettling, troubling in so many ways. And right now, we're living under the backdrop of a president of the United States, arguably the most powerful person in the world, who is literally looking to divide us, attack us, demonize us, other us, to stroke the fears, to stroke the divisions, to stroke the worst impulses of this nation. And right now, that makes this race even more important than ever. And I would argue that the biggest way we can push back against Donald Trump is to elect a Black immigrant, right? Educator, union leader, all of the things that Donald Trump is fighting against and attacking, showing that, well, this is who we are as a state. This is who we stand for. This is what we're all about. And when I talk about the passion that I have for protecting folks, standing up for every single resident, when I talk about the passion of fighting for our marginalized communities in every way, I talk about it with real credibility from my experience that I've done as a labor leader, as a teacher, certainly even as mayor and councilperson, as a father, and as that Black man immigrant who's come to this country and knows the challenges. This is the moment for us to change things, fundamentally change systems that aren't working for us. And it's just not good enough for us to, take small steps during one administration or another, only to see them undone, rolled back, or not go far enough. This is a chance to fundamentally change things at the core, and that's what this race is about. Not the party boss pick candidate. I'm not the millionaire swooping in. I'm not the usual person, but I've got a real shot at this, second place in all the polls, because I'm speaking to the people and I'm of the people, and I think that credibility matters. And I'm asking for your support. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Mayor.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Thanks for the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we will now be transitioning to Mayor Ras Baraka, if we can spotlight him.
Just adding Mayor Baraka now. Mayor Baraka was in the attendees, but I don't see his name anymore. This moment. Maybe he had to log off and log back in.
Yeah, he may have just logged off and logged back on. I'll also check with this team real quick.
Okay. Whilst Sammy is getting Mayor Ras Baraka on the line, we just want to give everyone an update. We do have a full lineup today. After Mayor Baraka, we will have Bill Spadia and then Steve Fulop speaking to everyone. So we really appreciate you all taking the time and joining us for a robust conversation. And we hope to cover a wide range of topics tonight. Thank you.
Yes, as we wait for the mayor to log back in, we appreciate everybody's patience. It's difficult trying to plan between everybody's scheduling and technical difficulties and so on. So this is much appreciated. I think it'll be another minute or two for him to join on. We got him? Fantastic.
All right, we have Mayor Barack in the waiting room, and
All right, great.
I think he's out again.
No way.
Oh, okay, we have him back. All right, excellent. We have Mayor Baraka joining us.
Mayor Baraka.
Hey there. All right, there I go.
Oh, there we go.
Gotta get this thing to work, man. I apologize.
Hello, welcome. And I'm proud to say this is the only elected candidate that I can say Assalamu alaikum to.
Walaikum assalam.
It's great to have you, Mayor. It's great to have you again. I mean, we've met many, many times over the past few weeks, but welcome to the first ever Gubernatorial Candidates Forum hosted by the Muslim community of New Jersey. As you know, New Jersey is home of one of the largest and most vibrant Muslim populations in the country, including one of the highest concentrations of Palestinian Americans. Tonight's forum is proudly presented by the New Jersey Muslim Civic Coalition, the New Jersey Muslim Lawyers Association, the Palestinian American Community Center, and CAIR Action. The Muslim community in New Jersey is more organized and engaged and unified than ever, with just over 46,900 Muslim uncommitted votes. It wasn't just Muslims, actually. It was a lot of people that were united with us on that front. It was a powerful message that we sent to the last administration demanding justice for Palestine and permanent ceasefire. With that momentum, we're looking to carry that into this election and support just the right candidate. Thank you for being with us in this historic conversation. We now invite you to share your opening remarks.
Oh, wow. Thank you. I think this week has been a very eventful week for us, across the country. I had the pleasure of participating in, rallies across the state of New Jersey. The one in Montclair, a couple of thousand people. It was amazing to see folks out in the rain. I'm excited. To today, I participated in a rally, in Newark in Military Park with Randy Weigarten, National Union Leader, AFT, and a bunch of local activists at the same time, groups like Make the Road and other organizations pushing back against what we see coming out of DC. It is an opportunity for us to use this as a chance to build a broad-based coalition across this country, and specifically here in New Jersey, across nationality, zip code, religion, for an opportunity to create a democracy that includes all of us, to create an economy that sees all of us, and to fight for issues that are progressive and that represent all of our communities. We know what has happened in New Jersey, and we know what's happening in the country right now. This is a critical moment, a juncture in history that we can't let it pass by. We can't sit idly by and watch what's happening in the world, in this country, and in our state go. We have to elect leaders that see us, that represent us, that know our issues, that know our concerns, that are fighting for the things that we're fighting for, that we're tired of carrying other people's water, that we have to carry our own water. We're tired of getting other people elected, that we have to elect people from our own communities, elect people who are not going to, around harm reduction, or electing people who are going to do us the less harm, but electing people who proactively support what we support, who fight for what we fight for, and know when we go to sleep at night that those people are going to be in those rooms that we've put them in. They're going to remember our faces, remember our children's faces, remember our names, and make sure that policies that we create represent the totality of the people of this state and not just those in power. And I would say, most people, a few people, the rich and the wealthy have lobbyists, they have bankers, they have accountants to look out for their interests. Everybody else depends on elected officials. They depend on the governor of the state of New Jersey. We can't let these people have both. They can't have the lobbyists and the governor. We have to let them have the lobbyists, and we have to elect a governor that lobbies for us, that speaks for us, that has our interests at heart. That's really why I'm running. I've been a mayor of Newark for 11 years, an activist for many years before that, a councilman, an educator for 23 years. I come from a family of activists, a family of community organizers. I know what needs to be done in this state, and we've fought very intractable and difficult issues in the city of Newark. And I know if we could do that in Newark, we could do it in the state of New Jersey. So I look forward to partnering with you, to getting the support from your organizations in helping us make history here in the state of New Jersey. We got an opportunity to do it, and our opportunity is now. We can't miss it.
Thank you so much, Mayor. And we're going to jump right into it. We have a slew of questions for you, so we would respectfully request that you give about a minute to two for each question, so that we can get through all of them. And I'll just jump right into it. So last year, the reported incidents of anti-Muslim discrimination and attacks in the United States rose by approximately 70% compared to the year prior. CAIR, who's one of the sponsors of tonight, documented almost 5,000 complaints related to anti-Muslim and anti-Palestinian acts, up about 3,000 acts since the year prior. This surge has largely been attributed to the heightened Islamophobia going on in New Jersey and around the country. As Islamophobia and Palestinian racism is on the rise, how will you work specifically to combat and protect our Muslim communities in your state, where we have one of the largest Arab Muslim populations?
One, I mean, I think that ultimately we have to work with community-based organizations, work with the masjids and other institutions here in the state to make sure that we are recording these incidents, that we are going after individuals who are committing these acts, that we're using the AG's office in the way that it should be, that we're providing protection for the Muslim community the same way we provide protection for other communities across the state of New Jersey, using law enforcement and the judicial forms of government. And we also, speaking of that, have to be able to make sure that we have Muslim representation on our courts, right, in our judge system, in our law enforcement community at the same time. And I would also argue that we need to build a strong interfaith alliance across the state to begin to bring communities together to talk and push back against this kind of Islamophobia, not just in our communities, but also on college campuses, where I think is incredibly important for us to be, especially now, to protect people's, ideas and right to disagree.
Thank you so much for answering that question so thoroughly. So the next question we wanted to ask is, as you've heard, I'm sure today, our community here in New Jersey is grieving. We just lost the 14-year-old Amir Rob, who is a resident of New Jersey, who was born and raised here, who was murdered by the Israeli military, and all while also dealing with attacks as a community in Paterson, as another diverse, thriving community, being criticized by other elected officials simply for being Palestinian. So we wanted to ask you, what is your response to, what would be your statement in wake of what's happened to Amir Rob? And then also, how are you going to protect people in Paterson, which is a neighboring town and where a majority of the Arab and Palestinian community exists, from all of this this misinformation?
So the last part first, when Bill Spadia was the one who first came out and said something ignorant like he did against the folks in Paterson, I immediately tweeted that to him and spoke out against him, and told him that was the most ridiculous thing that he could say in so many words. As elected officials, we have to stand up for the people in our community. We have to stand up for our constituency, and we have to call out bigotry and things that are wrong in his face. And that's what I did, and that's what I will continue to do. I think we also have to speak out against the heinous acts that are happening across the world. The death of a 14-year-old young boy who obviously was not a criminal, was not a terrorist, was not involved in all the things that they try to paint and uphold. That we have to speak against these acts and lift up humanity. Just speaking from our humanity and speaking from the idea that, children's lives should be precious, it gives us the strength and the fortitude to fight back against what these people are doing. I think people are afraid to be labeled, afraid to be called names, afraid to be isolated. And so they don't speak out. They don't say anything, and particularly elected officials. And I think it is, particularly in this time period, is incumbent upon us to make sure that we, in fact, speak against the things that we know are wrong and things that we know are heinous, particularly in this time period. And we should do what we can legally on the state side to make sure we don't support the kind of efforts that are going on now that are killing children.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, speaking of universities, you're the mayor of Newark, which I believe has 6 colleges and universities. What are your thoughts on the rise post-October 7th, the rise of Islamophobia, anti-Arab hate, anti-Palestinian hate? What do you think that universities should do to combat such hate? We know that Rutgers University is being investigated by the federal government for the rise of Islamophobia. What would you do, and what have your comments been to combat such hate in the state?
Well, clearly, I just came from a rally that was specifically talking about education and higher education and attack on academic freedom, particularly, individuals who speak out against the things that are happening in Israel, the things that are happening in Gaza right now, deporting students and using, the fact that they have student visas or green cards as an opportunity to deport people is clearly against academic freedom, clearly against the Constitution of the United States, and should be pushed back against. That the state of New Jersey should form, a cadre of lawyers that are ready to protect not just students, but teachers as well, professors as well, who have a different opinion than what the president of the United States has, that has a different opinion of what popular opinion may be, right? That the university should be protected, and students and professors should be protected on their campuses when they speak out. And that we should go as far as providing legal counsel for individuals who are swept up in this kind of hysteria, paranoia, and racism and Islamophobia at the same time. We have to be willing to stand on our values and fight for what it is that we believe.
Thank you so much, Mayor. And on the heels of that question, freedom of speech is one of the most important and most attacked bills and amendments right now. Muslim students on campus are feeling the heat, and it's only going to get worse if a particular legislation around anti-Semitism, which includes the IRA bill, the International Holocaust bill, which protects any speech that criticizes Israel, is passed. We need a direct answer from our candidates. Would you, as governor, veto said bill? We're not against anti-Semitism. We believe that all communities should be protected, but we are against quashing our freedom of speech when it comes to criticizing any country, including our own or Israel.
Absolutely. I absolutely. I love America, but I hate slavery, right? I hate Jim Crow, but I am here and vote in this country. And we cannot conflate the issue of criticizing the state of Israel with anti-Semitism.
Short and sweet. Great. Thanks.
Great. Thank you so much. In line with that as well, and recent executive actions that have held and have led to the detention of students such as Mahmoud Khalil, what concrete steps will you take to protect the safety and First Amendment rights of Muslim students while they express, or other pro-Palestinian supporters express their views on campus? How will you ensure that they are safeguarded from unjust actions, both by federal authorities and university administrations?
Right. The university administration is something that we can get involved in immediately, right? We can begin to make sure that that the situation or the culture on the campus is not that we have a heavier hand in what's happening on these campuses, and begin to use our interfaith alliances to come onto these campuses and create an atmosphere for legitimate discourse and debate, which I think is necessary, and that we need to create uphold a university where their discourse is allowed, where conflict and discussion is allowed. In terms of the federal government, as I said earlier, we need to have, like we have in Newark, Office of Tenant Legal Services, we need to begin on a state side have legal services put aside for folks who may encounter ICE or encounter federal, authorities because they spoke out against something that they didn't want them to speak out against, to represent these people for free, right? To protect students and protect faculty members, because not just students, also faculty who are, especially adjunct faculty on some of these campuses, are not being brought back because of some of the things that they're teaching and the ideas that they have or rallies that they've attended.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, representation in government is really essential. If you don't have a seat on the table, your opinion and what matters to you is not addressed. What examples can you give on how you ensured Muslim representation in your city as mayor? And also, how would you commit to representation in your cabinet? You also spoke about diversity on the bench. We haven't had a Muslim on the New Jersey Supreme Court. We've never had a Muslim as a county prosecutor. Will you commit today to appointing the first Muslim on the New Jersey Supreme Court and the first Muslim county prosecutor?
Absolutely. I mean, in our, in Newark, the Muslims on my direct cabinet, my deputy mayor, that's Muslim. We have Muslim lawyers and Muslims up and down the government in the city of Newark. And I would say the same on boards and commissions, that we have to have a diverse group of people on boards and commissions, not just by nationality and religion, but also by profession and where they work and what their expertise is on these boards and commissions that basically guide and dictate policy up and down the state of New Jersey and deep into the bureaucracy, not just the public-facing positions, that we begin to create diversity deep into the bureaucracy in the state of New Jersey. And I absolutely think is necessary, particularly in this time, to have Muslims on the bench and Muslims directly in law enforcement.
Thank you so much, Mayor. You answered them so efficiently. You're going to enter into the bonus round now, which is very special. So thank you so much for that. Curriculum in New Jersey has been criticized over the past few decades, but we've made major strides in certain circumstances, particularly with the Amistad curriculum updates, which focused on the Black and African American history. The Muslim contribution.
Lost them.
I can jump in for that question until he hops back on. So the question was based around curriculum, and would you support curriculum for Arabs and Palestine education? Would you also support the implementation of halal foods in our school to cater to Muslim students?
Yeah, Newark is probably, I don't know, one of the only districts that allow kids to get off during, Eid Fitr, and that's the only district I think that allows that to happen. Maybe a couple in Central Jersey, I don't know, but up here we allow that to happen. And so I agree that we should be allowing our curriculum to be more universal, to allow Islamic studies, Palestinian studies in high schools in particular, to allow even advanced placement the same way I would say in African American history, advanced placement courses, that we should do the same around Islamic history, around Palestinian history, around all of the things that we think our young people should be broadened on. So I would agree to that. It is very, very, very interesting that we're fighting for these things in an environment where they're trying to repeal all of these things, the very little things that we've gotten in the first place. So the answer to that would be to go further, not to be afraid, but to go further.
Love that. And if you ever need any help, we have people at the Palestinian American Community Center that can help educate teachers in Newark on Palestinian curriculum and teaching teaching Palestinian and Muslim students. So happy to hear that. And as I see that we're still waiting for Sammy. So Saad, do you want to take the next question about cost of living?
Yeah, sure. I'll go in with the next question. Mayor, you've spoken a lot on the campaign trail about the cost of living. The cost of living in New Jersey is through the roof, and it's an issue that affects all New Jerseyans. What is your economic plan to support um, uh, New Jerseyans in making sure that they can afford their bills? What would you commit to do to support small businesses? We know that Muslims are great entrepreneurs and really are shepherding urban centers and economic corridors of the state. How would you really change the economy in New Jersey?
Well, first, in order to make the economy affordable, there's a few things that we have to do. We have to lower healthcare costs at the state level to help people afford lower their taxes. There's two main things that happens that raises your taxes: that's school costs and healthcare costs. We need to combine some of these schools, redo the school funding formula, help you lower, or combine school districts, help lower the healthcare cost, help lower school costs, lower healthcare costs by capping the kind of spending and the costs at hospitals and insurance companies, so the costs aren't rising arbitrarily, so you're not paying more than you should be. We need to repeal the Christie tax cuts, the $15 billion he gave to the super wealthy. We need to begin to take that money and reinvest it back in our economy. This Stay New Jersey plan that these folks came up with that kind of commandeers millions of dollars to give it to wealthy folks in our state. We need to begin to repurpose that money, begin to put it in the hands of working class families in the state of New Jersey. In order to lower costs in rent and lower costs in mortgages, we need to build more homes and build more affordable housing throughout the state of New Jersey. Our state has had a difficult time in investing in small business. In fact, small businesses employ more New Jersey residents than all of the big businesses combined. And so we need to be investing in small businesses, watching them grow. That means that we give them tax credits for hiring more employees, tax credits for expanding their business from the cities that they live in to economically distressed communities, so they can go into those communities and hire more residents as well, and begin to invest in workforce to train people to be available for industries that are growing in the state of New Jersey at the same time. But our number one act is to make the wealthy pay their fair share, invest in small businesses, watch them grow, hire more residents, and lower costs in the state of New Jersey at the same time.
Thank you so much, Mayor. One of the big issues facing a lot of our Black brothers and sisters is the issue of reparations. And this is something that's been brought up many times, but nobody really has tackled it in any significant or material way. What would your thoughts be on your role as governor in dealing with reparations for our Black brothers and sisters?
First, we have to have the courage to say it. They won't even allow us to say the word reparations. So we should be able to at least talk about it and have discourse about what that looks like, whether it means an expansion of earned income tax credits, whether it means an expansion of child tax credits, whether it means opportunity to have access to universities, right? To get funding for small business startups. All of those things are a part of that. And I would argue the more money you put in working families' hands, the better our economy becomes, because, working people don't put their money in IRAs and tax shelters. They spend it, not because they need financial literacy, but because they have an abundance of bills to pay. And so I would support reparations. I would support the discussion of reparations in the state of New Jersey, and figure out ways to get money in African-American communities' hands so they could use that money to create access to the middle class, to close this wealth gap, the 200-year wealth gap, and at the same time stimulate our economy.
Thank you so much, Mayor. And we're coming right up on the half hour here. And on a personal note, it felt great when we met during Ramadan and we were both fasting together when you came to ICPC.
Leading, can't do that, leading.
Huh? Yeah. So, and fasting together, but we would like to, extend this opportunity for you to make any closing remarks if you'd like. If there's anything that we didn't cover in our questions, please feel free to add them in now. But we are very grateful for your many responses and your strong dialogue and the fact that you were so efficient. I mean, if you could answer questions this quickly, man, we're in good shape.
Well, I appreciate it. Want to say shukran to you guys. I appreciate and thank you for the opportunity. I'm humbled and honored to speak before you today. It is my pleasure to be on this journey, going up and down the state, fighting for families and folks who don't have a voice normally, and being their voice. To do that, I feel very obligated in many aspects to make sure that I say everything that I need to say, as hard as I need to say it, because I feel like, we only have this opportunity one time. In this crisis that is going on, is our moment not to shrink but to rise. And I feel good that I'm alive today and breathing today to have the opportunity to be a part of what I think is going to be an incredible next season. While this season is horrible for us, I think the next season will be even better. So I thank you for giving me the opportunity, and I look forward to winning this election in June.
Thank you so much, Mayor. We really appreciate it, and we wish you the best of luck. And we'll be
Yes.
signing off now with you, and we're going to have our next candidates joining on. So thank you so much for your time, sir.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
So we will now take a short break for those that haven't prayed Maghrib yet and those that need to, just refresh. We would like to mention that the 8:30 slot was intended for Mikey Sherrill. We will have Bill Spadia joining us at 8:45. He was gracious enough to accommodate moving his slot up by 15 minutes. And again, after Spadia, we will have Mayor Fulop joining us again because we had the technical issues at the beginning. Congresswoman Mikey Sherrill, despite having confirmed with us multiple times, today announced to us that she would not be joining us, which was quite disappointing. And so, unfortunately, she would have been taking this slot. We had plenty of great questions for her, and we had spoken with her team multiple times, but unfortunately, she elected not to join us tonight. And so we will have this break. We'll rejoin right around 8:45. So everyone can feel free to take a break. We will be back at 8:45, joined by Bill Spadia, and commence from there. Thank you so much for your attendance so far. It's been great to see the nearly 200 participants, and we will speak to you soon. Thank you so much. Okay, we're gonna get rolling in just a few minutes. It's 8:42, inshallah. In about 3 minutes, we'll reconvene and keep going, inshallah. So please tune back in and tell others that are around to tune back in, inshallah. All right, we're gonna wait just another few moments or minutes while we wait for Mr. Spadia to also join us. Saad, do we have Mr. Spadia joining us yet?
Yes, we do have Bill Spadia, and we're adding him as a listen.
And I just wanna address one thing that I know that some folks might not see every question that they put into the chat being addressed. In the registration process, hello, Mr. Spadia. In the registration process, we requested everyone to put questions, and we ended up getting, I think, over 150 questions. There was a lot of consolidation and a lot of repeated questions, and so we tried to bubble those up to the top. Unfortunately, we're limited to about 30 minutes, and our goal is to actually have each candidate answer very similar questions so that we can juxtapose them next to each other and get a pretty accurate view of how they all stack up against that. So these are basically the questions that were the most popular amongst all of the questions asked, along with what we consider to be sort of the prioritization within them. And then we're asking them. So apologies if not all questions are being asked, but we are limited to this 30 minutes. So without further ado, I'll hand it off to Saad.
Thank you so much. Hello and welcome, Bill Spadia. Thank you for joining us, Bill, to our first ever gubernatorial candidate forum hosted specifically for the Muslim community of New Jersey. We did invite all the candidates running, and we're happy that you're joining us from the Republican Party. You're the only Republican candidate joining this forum, and so we're very excited to have you join us. As you may know, New Jersey is home to one of the largest and most vibrant Muslim populations in the country, and including the highest concentrations of Palestinian Americans. Tonight's forum is proudly presented by the New Jersey Muslim Civic Coalition, the New Jersey Muslim Lawyers Association, PACC, and CAIR Action. One thing I'd like to start off with we'll give you a minute to do an introduction. I think one important question, when I met you, you addressed the fact that if Muslims were to just hear about Republican ideals, conservative ideals, it would really resonate with them. In your intro, could you all speak about your background, why you're running for office, and why you think Muslims should vote for you?
Well, thank you, Saad. Thank you, Sammy. Thank you for everyone on this call. It's a great honor for me to come on. We've done a lot of calls like this with specific communities because at the end of the day, we're all Americans. At the end of the day, we all live in New Jersey and have a mutual interest in making the state better. And most of what I believe in, I believe crosses the line and transcends party values. You know, each party talks about their own talking points, but I think it's very simple. We need New Jersey to be more affordable. We need to open the doors for small business and entrepreneurs. We need better access to capital. And we need to lower the regulatory burden so that our entrepreneurs and business leaders can hire the people they want and grow their communities. That's that affordability bucket. The second thing is we need safer streets. We have a real crisis in this state where we tend to fight international battles and national battles instead of focusing on the fact that we have children in many of our cities running around with firearms, and in the case of Newark just a couple of weeks ago, gunning down and murdering a police officer. So for all the talking points of the national issues, we won't solve them in one gubernatorial election. There are two sides to many of the international issues that plague us, whether we're talking about the conflict between Israel and Palestine and Hamas, whether we're talking about Russia and Ukraine, and even to the extent whether we're talking about congestion pricing across the river, across the Hudson in New York. Too many politicians want to score points with different communities based on their answers to questions about things that, quite honestly, have no impact on the quality of life in New Jersey. I want to make New Jersey more affordable. I want to make our streets safer, and I want to revamp New Jersey government. You know, the crude way of saying it is to copy Elon Musk and President Trump and say NJ Doge. I have said this, yes. Some cases I get booed for saying it. Some places they cheer. It isn't about a soundbite. It's not about a fancy acronym. What it is about is that we have a $58 billion budget. And we have a very rapidly growing minority community across the state of New Jersey. We have a crisis where diversity is used as a political talking point to have set-asides based on religion, based on skin color, based on sexual orientation, all of these things. I'm a believer that all of that has to end. And I will, as governor, end diversity, equity, and inclusion. And, you know, just so you all know about me, I will not tell you what you necessarily want to hear. I don't go into these meetings and say, okay, what does the Muslim community need to hear? I don't go into the Chinese American event and say, what do the Chinese Americans want to hear? I'm going to tell you and answer every question honestly based on my long experience. I'm 56 years old. I've been a broadcaster for the past 12 years. I served in the United States Marine Corps. I've been married to my wonderful wife, Jody, for 30 years now. We have two incredible children. Both are grown and living out of state. Our daughter, Elizabeth, got married a year ago. We want to bring back generational living to the Garden State. And what I mean by that is that when I was a kid growing up in the 1970s, 1980s, we had Sunday dinner at my great-grandmother's house. And my grandparents lived a half a mile from my great-grandparents. And we lived 2 miles from them. And we all shared this culture. And over the past 20, 25 years, New Jersey has completely wrecked that scenario. You have grandparents who are not wealthy enough to leave and are not wealthy enough to stay. So they get hurt and they just want something to give them a leg up. But the real crisis is their kids can't afford to buy a house. The grandkids can't afford to find a job. They all end up leaving and scattering. And now you've got great-grandparents, God willing, they live long enough to be great-grandparents with that blessing, yet they don't see their kids but twice a year on holidays. And that's got to change. So I am on a mission. I had no intention, to be very candid, of running for governor. I had a very comfortable living. I spent 25 years in the private sector. I was a real estate executive working for Jim Weichert, managing thousands of agents, opening offices all over the country, had a great corporate job, built up the business with Jim Weichert, and then I left to get into television. The television show on Fox TV was a great success. We're on prime time of Fox 5 in New York, Fox 29 in Philly, and My 9 in Northern New Jersey. Then I took over the top morning show in New Jersey on 101.5 and built it into a juggernaut of more than 1 million listeners, very diverse, half women, half men, unlike almost every talk show in the country, but divided equally, a third Democrat, a third Republican, and a third independent. So I've learned that when you speak truth, when you are a man of faith and you have a code of conduct and morality, and you base your decisions on morality and ethics and doing the right thing and integrity, people listen. And I believe that now it's time to take what I've done as a business leader, as a small business owner. I make movies, believe it or not, for Lifetime TV. We've been doing that for about 6 years. So I've done a lot in my business career. I've done a lot as a communicator on the air and been very, very successful. I am at the top of the game in broadcast in the Northeast. Yet I walked away from a very lucrative financial future where I could have retired in the next 4 years. And I walked away because my wife, Jody, and I decided it was time to fix this state. I would like to be that great-grandparent living in the Garden State. That is my mission, and I believe that we can only retake common sense in our state government if we combine our faith and morality with our decision making and rid the state of these professional politicians who have been raiding our coffers and oppressing our middle and working class, all for their own design. It's time to end the rule of the elites and allow the people to flourish, and that's my mission.
Thank you so much, Mr. Spadia. We're going to commence with our questions. Our questions are going to be revolving a lot about the Muslim community. Other interest groups will ask about their own interest. But we respectfully request that you keep your answers to about 60 seconds to 1.5 minutes because we've got a bunch of questions and we want to get through them. Thank you so much, sir. Our very first question is, last year, the reported incidents on anti-Muslim discrimination and attacks rose by about 70% from the year before. So we had about 5,000 complaints reported as per the CAIR, the Council on American Islamic Relations. This surge has largely been attributed to a heightened Islamophobia and ongoing conflicts in the Middle East. As Islamophobia and anti-Palestinian racism is on the rise, how will you work to combat and protect the Muslim communities and all the communities where we have one of the largest Arab and Muslim populations in the country?
Well, the first thing is we have to stop conflating legal and illegal, whether you are identifying as a Palestinian, whether you are a practicing Muslim. We have a legal and illegal status in this state, which I am going to end the sanctuary state on day one. I'm going to end the Immigrant Trust Directive on day one. I truly believe that if you look at a place like Paterson, New Jersey, where you have a high number of Muslim families, where you have a high number of self-identified Palestinians, when you look at that, I want to draw a line between illegal and legal, because I believe legal Muslims, people who came here for the right reasons to build their businesses, build their families, you deserve every right to live in peace like everyone else, whether you are a Catholic or a Jew or a Muslim. That said, when we blur the line between illegal and legal, and we harbor some people who are criminals, who have ties to some very bad people, and whether you could talk about any group from Africa, the Middle East, South America, Central America, we have to first get our house in order, and then every legal resident has a right to live their life and be protected by the law. It is really what's rampant is violence on our streets, violence on our campuses, whether it's anti-Semitism or anti-Muslim hatred. The hatred is only going to stop when we get control of law enforcement and we allow our law enforcement officers to do their job. We should have a zero tolerance of this hateful language and interaction on our college campuses, and that will start day one when I'm governor.
Thank you, Bill. You did speak about Paterson, and we have been getting a lot of this question. It's elephant in the room. You recently tweeted "Free Paterson"
Yes.
when the issue of ICE detaining immigrants came up. And so, could you expand on that?
Yes.
Why
I want to free
you...
Paterson the way Donald Trump wants to free America. I was in Paterson filming for one of our commercials, and I said the words "Free Paterson," and I said, "You've got a mayor who is playing the game of identity politics. We're going to call it Little Palestine. We're going to put up Palestine Way. He is virtue signaling to say that anyone that criticizes what he's doing is somehow an Islamophobe, somehow anti-Muslim, anti-Palestinian. That is not true. I called on the mayor to follow the law. I've had these conversations with President Trump and with Tom Homan, and I can tell you firsthand, the focus is on those that have ties to terrorism, those that have ties to the criminal cartels across the Mexican border. And it's not just limited to Muslims. It's not just limited to Mexicans. It is everyone who is here illegally. I mean, our border has been open for the better part of the last 4 years, and there are no fewer than 500,000 criminal aliens who are living among us. We know there are 900,000 people here illegally now. The reason I targeted Little Palestine, I did it on purpose, yes, because I wanted to show that there are thousands and thousands of good Muslim Americans who have followed the law, and they are now being caught up in something because people would choose to use religious identity and ignore the legal status. And I don't believe we can tolerate that any longer. There are legal Muslims who are being persecuted and being caught up because irresponsible mayors like the one in Patterson want to make it that there's no difference between a legal citizen and someone who broke the law to come here. And there is, in fact, a great difference.
Just a follow-up question to that, because Patterson is really home to many Muslims, and you referenced right now Little Palestine or Palestine Way. Do you have a problem specifically with the neighborhood being called Little Palestine?
No different than Chinatown, Little Italy. We spend a lot of time in Lakewood, where the Orthodox community dominates the streets of Lakewood. Actually, I used to go, and there's a gun club called Sure Shot, and I used to when I taught my kids how to shoot, we would drive through Lakewood on a Saturday, and the Orthodox Jewish community, of course, they don't drive cars on Saturday and they're walking. It's a Sabbath. And I would explain to my kids, this is the kind of diversity that we celebrate as Americans, that you can live your life free to practice your religion and without outside interference. I would otherwise love to celebrate Little Palestine. Cannot be done until the sanctuary for criminal aliens has ended. And I'm going to work aggressively with Tom Homan to end it. And we are going to free the legal Muslims who are there, because they have every right to live free of those that support terrorist organizations. They have the right to live free of people that are tied in with the cartels and everything else. And no American mayor should be harboring anyone who is breaking our laws. I want to follow the laws.
Just a last follow-up, Bill,
Sure.
because you mentioned that anyone who's harboring terrorists, are you saying that there's terrorists in Patterson?
Maybe. Maybe. Why is the mayor not allowing ICE to come into Patterson?
But don't you feel making a blanket statement that ICE has to go to Patterson? Why not say ICE has to go after criminals? But why Patterson?
I have said that, but the mayor took the bold step of saying we will defy immigration and customs enforcement. When the mayor decided to make a bold statement that he refused to work with the federal government, when the federal government's stated mission was to arrest and detain and carry out legal detainer orders handed down by a federal judge, when the mayor started telling people how they could avoid ICE, and he made no difference between a criminal alien and, let's say, someone who overstayed their visa, or let's say somebody who is from the Middle East and settled here with a work visa, he conflated legal and illegal. And when you do that, as a leader who is running to be governor of the great state of New Jersey, I believe I have a moral obligation to call that out. And by the way, just so you know, I've called out Ross Baraka the same way. I've called out the same government in Irvington and Patterson and Trenton. And I'm friends with Reed Gusiora. I'll give you another example. I'm friends with Tim Doherty as the mayor in Morristown. As a Democrat, he sided with the governor saying, yeah, we're going to be a sanctuary too. I've been friends with him for years, called him out the same way I called out the mayor in Patterson. I am opportunity going after guys, whether they're my friends or not. And I'll tell you the truth, I learned that in the Marines. One of the things they teach in the Marine Corps is that you have no friends when you are guarding the arsenal. You have a duty. And I
Okay,
believe
thank you for answering those
Thank
questions.
you.
We're going to keep the ball rolling on this. I'm just going to introduce myself, Halima Tuam with the Palestinian American Community Center. We actually have a very similar background. I worked on campaigns and then worked in locations for a
Nice to
long
meet
time
you.
because I believe culture is how we're going to change things, culture and policy. So you and I align on that for sure. Just wanted to bring up the next question for you, which is, you're talking a lot about legal processes and respecting the law. So in that theme of respecting the law, in the light of recent executive actions that have led to the detention of students such as Mahmoud Khalil, who was not convicted of an actual crime or had done anything illegal, what concrete steps would you take to protect the safety and the First Amendment rights of Muslim students and others expressing pro-Palestinian views on campus? How will you ensure and safeguard from unjust actions by both federal authorities and university administrations for people who are just
So,
expressing their views on an illegal occupation,
well, but that
the
is, listen,
terrorism of
but
Palestinian
all due
people? Please
respect,
don't cut me off.
that is
Thank
the
you.
debate, whether it's an illegal occupation or whether or not it is self-defense. That is the debate. We don't, and to my earlier point, I don't think it's appropriate for the next governor to even have that debate. That is something for our national policymakers, because there's nothing the New Jersey governor is going to solve on that. Now, that said, there is a reasonable limitation to free speech. And when people are advocating, if you're advocating for terrorism, there is a limit to that free speech, because you could make the same argument
So are you
that
saying
these
advocating for Palestine is advocating for terrorism?
no, not at all. I didn't say that. I said that there has been an equal rise, if not a greater rise, in many campuses of anti-Semitism, and many believe that the violence against Jewish students is exacerbated by folks that are out there protesting for Hamas. It's very easy to blur those lines because of the way college students are. Now, I'm also a believer that we give out far too many student visas. I think our college campuses are a complete mess. I think we ought to be focusing on making sure that returning veterans and local students have a leg up instead of international students. So I could have an entire discussion that I don't think the state of New Jersey should be involved at any level of subsidizing foreign students to come to our universities, because we have too many Americans who are here legally that were already here, part of the family, growing up and losing seats. I remember in Morris County, we had a big battle over seats that were given to illegal immigrants over returning veterans from the Iraq War. So again, do I think that your free speech should be protected? 100%. I am a believer in the First Amendment. I'm a believer in the Second Amendment and all the amendments all the way down the list. However, you could absolutely cross a line into what could be considered inciting violence. And I would have to look at the individual statements. I'll tell you this, we're going to get control of our college campuses, or we're going to defund them. The idea that we've got violence at any level in the college campuses. Look, I went to BU in Boston during a time where the left was burning Ronald Reagan, then President Ronald Reagan, in effigy. It was, this has always been. Then it was the Contras in Nicaragua. Now it's Palestine and Israel. There will always be. Before that, it was Vietnam and the Viet Cong versus and how our troops were treated. So there will always be a hotbed of ideas on college campuses. I encourage that. When it leads to violence, however, I think the government is right to step in and say we probably have to take a longer look at this.
Thank you so much, Mr. Spadia, and much appreciated for you to be consistent and express your views as divergent as they might be from some of the folks that are listening. I would just offer one correction, which is that I've been to many of the college campus protests and I haven't seen any pro-Hamas, and I've been pro-Palestinian my entire life. I've lost over 40 members of my family that were killed in Gaza. And so you might want to check the facts on that tidbit that is floating around a lot of the news channels around that. But
I only base it on, by the way, just so you know where I stand on this, there's no question that we saw what happened at Columbia University and others in New York. It did not happen to the extent in New Jersey, but it certainly happened in Manhattan, where you had a lot of violence against Jewish students. And you could make the same argument there. As a matter of fact, the Jewish groups who I've talked to do make the same argument. So I think we're potentially at an impasse on some of these issues. And I've said this, the reason I said free Patterson is I would say the same thing, that unfortunately the Free Palestine movement out there apologizes for a lot of the actions taken during these military operations. Instead, I can't believe we haven't come together and said, why do we allow the situation where Hamas has rockets on top of schools? Why is that not the conversation, instead of just blanket, hey, you're either pro-Palestine or you hate Muslims? I think there's a nuance there, and I'm a believer in a greater conversation, and I think we should. I'll be honest, it's why I'm here. I don't know if my Republican colleagues have agreed to come on, but I will come on to any forum and discuss any issue, because I want to represent all of the people. And let's say we disagree on a couple of nuances, that's fine. My goal is to find our common ground and work
I appreciate
together.
that. And I do think that that is probably the pathway forward. But my question was actually going to be, you've expressed a lot of support for the First Amendment, and the First Amendment is actually near and dear to my heart as well. With a current legislative attempt to pass an anti-Semitism law that includes the IRA definition, the International Holocaust definition, which provides an extraordinarily high level of protection around criticism of the state of Israel. Now, as an American, I believe I can criticize any country, including my own and including Israel's. Veto a bill that had IRA as part of it, which would, we can have an anti-Semitism bill that protects anti-Semitism all you want, but protecting the state of Israel and criticism of Israel, would you veto a bill that...
I would have to read it, but if you want my general philosophy...
Have you never read it? You've never read IRA?
No, I don't. I haven't read that. So I would love to read it, but I can tell you what my general philosophy is without the specifics. We have to retain the right to criticize not only foreign governments, but our own government. I was under fire when I criticized the regime in Kiev, when I called out Zelensky as a fascist, as a guy that oppressed locals and killed Russian speakers. He was as bad as Putin. And when I called him out, my job was threatened as a host, where the company came down very hard on me. So you will not find me on signing a bill that would somehow criminalize a criticism of the state of Israel. That is absurd, and I would absolutely not sign that. Again, protecting free speech. I've always believed my rights end at the end of your nose. I can say what I want within reason. You can't yell fire in a crowded restaurant. I mean, there's obviously limitations to speech. I think we have gone down a very scary road of defining hate speech and criminalizing criticism. I am a believer that we should not be criminalizing criticism. I have plenty of conservative friends who are called out as anti-Semites because they question the foreign aid to Israel. I have questioned foreign aid my entire career. It's not a question of whether or not we support or oppose the folks that are receiving it. It's not about the people. But so anyway, long answer to your question.
I appreciate that. And I'm just going to end, and then I'll pass this off, that I am a board member for the Center for Islamic Life at Rutgers, where Jeremy Bleacher was just convicted for attacking our chaplaincy house and destroying all of the artifacts and Muslim artifacts inside. So I know while you mentioned attacks specifically of Jewish students, you failed to mention the attacks on Muslim students and Muslim houses of worship. And because you're the governor of New Jersey, or running for it, I would hope that that would be the priority, where there's a public university with about 7,000 Muslims there.
Sammy, I would hope that what you've heard from my commentary today.
No, I did. And
I'm
I appreciate
100% with you on that.
Okay, no, I appreciate that. And I did hear, but it would be great for you to also, as vociferously as you did, talk about how the Jewish students were attacked, talk about how the Muslims and Palestinian students were attacked, and our house of worship inside New Jersey. And rather than referencing Colombia or other examples, let's talk about New Jersey, because that's what we're focused on. Thank you so much, and I'm going to hand it off.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Just so we're clear, I agree with that. And I believe in the full prosecution of anybody that it acts in an aggressive way against anyone because of the color of their skin or the religion that they practice. And
absolutely,
there would be zero tolerance.
It's anecdotal, but that Beecher was a Jewish man. That is anecdotal, but that is.
Well, it doesn't matter. He could be Italian. He could be Irish. I mean, people who commit criminal acts, we got to get back to enforcing the law. And we're not enforcing the law. We make excuses for bad behavior on all sides of the aisle, and I'm tired of it. I'm tired of it.
Absolutely, which is
I want
why we hope that as a representative, you can balance out the narrative and make sure that you're giving both communities equal attention and the fairness that is required in protecting both communities.
I hope
so hopefully we can balance out that narrative a bit more and learn some new statistics.
Well,
I'm going to ask the next question because we only have 3 minutes,
but
and I want to give you an opportunity to answer this next question so that we can make your closing remarks.
Thank you, Halima. Bill, we'll have you say, because I know a question was posed, so you can have one word, but we're going to be shifting gears in the last 2 minutes, but you can have the final word on this.
Yeah, so we're just going to ask the next question.
Yeah. Okay. Bill, thank you so much. And I do want to mention that we appreciate you coming and voicing your opinions. And I think that's what's important. We want to make sure that your views are clear and platform is clear to everyone. Shifting gears, you mentioned that you would be a governor for all people. And we know that Muslim Americans are underrepresented in government. Currently, the New Jersey Supreme Court has not had a Muslim appointed on the New Jersey Supreme Court. Other high levels of government have not had Muslim representations, no Muslim at the county prosecutor level. What are your thoughts on the need for diversity in the higher levels of government?
Well, first of all, I do not believe that we should have set-asides nor diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I'm going to veto anything that deals with diversity, equity, and inclusion. As a matter of fact, I've made my position very clear that I'm going to use an executive order to end DEI on day one. And I'm going to work against the set-asides in procurement and hiring. That's number one. But number two, more importantly, I hope that my actions speak louder than any words that other candidates might say to you. I'm here. I will come back here. You will all have a seat at the table when I'm governor. I would like to have this conversation again when I win the nomination, because I will work aggressively hard for common ground. I don't believe in diversity for diversity's sake. I do not think that you say, because the minute you accept one, you've got to accept them all. It's why we now have 17 languages in some of our schools. You know what language we need in our schools? English. And everyone should learn English so we can assimilate our diverse communities better. I grew up in an Italian household. We've got our cultural differences that my grandparents and parents have held on to for many decades. And some of those are fantastic. You've got yours. The Chinese have theirs. I do a lot with the Indian community and the Hindus. So everyone has their own. I want to be a governor that brings back the melting pot. But that said, we do have a diverse role in this government, in as much as you're here specifically as Muslim Americans. The Chinese community is specifically there as Chinese Americans, and I've done 6 or 7 of these. So I will make this promise to you, regardless of whether or not some of your members may get mad at something I say, may misunderstand. I believe at the end of the day, we're going to find 75% common ground on how we should educate our children, how we should acquire capital for our businesses, how we should make sure that our parents are not just informed, but involved and have the power for medical decisions and education decisions, because everyone is entitled to an education and everyone is entitled to their family autonomy and their medical freedom. And right now we don't practice that in New Jersey. And I believe that what is going to be good for the Muslim community will be good for all communities. But I am sensitive and conscious that we can't just paint with a broad brush, that you are not wrong, that there's anger out there. There are angry people. There's a black and white tension. There's a Muslim, non-Muslim tension. There's a Jewish tension. It is rampant. Our society has completely devolved, and we have lost the ability to be civil with one another. So the promise that I will make is I will come back here, and you will all have a seat at the table when we are looking for judges. Let me tell you something. We're going to have thousands of appointments. I envision many, many Muslim leaders getting appointments in our government. No one will be stopped because one group objects because of some stance that you may or may not have taken on your ancestral heritage. So that is my promise to you, because I do believe very strongly as a Catholic that Catholics and Muslims have a lot in common when it comes to the role of mothers and fathers, when it comes to the role of raising strong boys and strong girls, when it comes to the role of making sure that the family and the community and your faith has the supremacy over the arbitrary actions of government. And I will be the champion who will protect the Islamic community against the intrusion of government in the same way we're going to protect all communities. So I hope that my actions here coming on and saying I will come back speak volumes.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Bill Spadia. We really appreciate it. We want to just repeat that this invitation was given to all the candidates, and Bill Spadia is the only Republican candidate joining this forum. We appreciate and respect him for sharing his views with us tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Saad.
Thank you. At this time, we're going to be moving over to our next panelist, Mayor Stephen Fulop of Jersey City. As you know, Mayor Fulop was scheduled to appear at 7 p.m. as starting us off, and we really apologize for the technical difficulties on our part. The mayor was here on time, and we're really delighted to have him join us. Welcome, Mayor Steve Fulop.
It's actually worked out really well. I got to put my kids to sleep. Hopefully they stay asleep, but I appreciate you accommodating me with a second time because of the technical issues, for sure.
Thank you so much. And Mayor, for the audience, I'm a proud product of Jersey City Public Schools, and we've really seen the great work you've done in Jersey City. We want to welcome you to the first ever gubernatorial forum hosted by the Muslim community. And it's really an opportunity to connect candidates with the Muslim community, addressing issues that are important to us on the top of our minds in the current climate. Tonight's forum is proudly presented by the New Jersey Muslim Civic Coalition, the New Jersey Muslim Lawyers Association, the Palestinian American Community Center, and CAIR Action. We'll have a line of questions, and in each question we'll ask that you limit your answer to 1 minute. But before we get started, we'd like to ask you in 1 minute to offer an introduction to those who are hearing you, seeing you for the first time. How could you describe your platform and why people should vote for you?
First of all, I want to say it's nice to see you and thank you for having me. And our platform is different. It focuses on really three things. Our whole campaign is different. I mean, everybody's going to get on this call and tell you the right things. And I think at the end of our time together, you'll see how our campaign is different. So I won't get to specifics on the intro, but I'll tell you, we are about a couple things. We are about political reform because the current system in New Jersey doesn't work for inclusion, doesn't work for minorities, doesn't work for anybody outside of the political establishment that has monetized it. Second thing, our campaign is about more detail and substance than any of the others, clear direction on policy, not platitudes. You'll see that as well. And then the third thing is really being vocal on a clear plan in a Trump era on how we're going to push back and stand up for New Jersey, not just talking about it, but clearly stating what we're going to do. Finally, I would just tell you that I have a different relationship with the Muslim community than any of the other candidates. As a person that grew up in a Jewish household, the fact that I have such a close tie with the Muslim community in Jersey City and beyond, which I think the people that are meeting me for the first time will learn to understand, is a very unique and special thing. And it's something that both the Muslim community and I value greatly here in Jersey City, and we'd replicate that and expand that statewide.
Thank you so much.
Sammy, we'll start.
Yeah, sure. Thanks so much, Mayor Fulop. And once again, apologize for the technical difficulties.
No, it's all good. It's all good.
And you might be surprised that not everybody's getting on here saying all the things we do want to hear. So I wouldn't take it for granted necessarily. But jumping right into the question, last year, the reported incidence of anti-Muslim discrimination in the United States rose by approximately 70% compared to the year prior. CAIR, who's one of the sponsors of this, noted that there were almost 5,000 complaints that year and about 3,000 years prior. This surge has been largely attributed to a heightened Islamophobia atmosphere. And so as Islamophobia and anti-Palestinian racism is on the rise, how will you work to combat and protect our communities where we have one of the largest Arab and Muslim populations in the state?
I can't tell you, Sammy, if everybody says the right things or the wrong things on these calls, right? What I can tell you is that for those of you that don't know me, I'm the mayor of Jersey City, which is the single most diverse city in the country and certainly in New Jersey. We have a very large Muslim community here. And I often say that when I ran for city council in 2005, there was nobody, no community other than little pieces of activists, no community that stood by me other than the Pakistani Muslim community in Jersey City. And since 2005, it has been my closest relationship, and I've been a fierce protector and defender of it. And if you don't believe me, I would urge those of you that have family or friends in Jersey City to call them and ask them what they think of me as mayor and what the relationship is. And they will tell you, because they're the best validators for me. Over the last 10 years and 12 years, we haven't tolerated Islamophobia. When Donald Trump said a word about people dancing in the street, it was CAIR and I that did a press conference here in Jersey City with Muslim leaders to clearly state what the Muslim community is about here in Jersey City. It was me that appointed a Palestinian councilman, Youssef, to the Jersey City Municipal Council when I had that flexibility, and I was a mentor to him since the days he was 17 and 16. It's me that has been an advocate in pushing back on anything that speaks to hate around Muslims because I don't tolerate it. And I would be the same thing as governor. I come here and everybody says the right things, but what I want to point out to you all is that I have a history of actions, and it's coming from a place that somebody wouldn't necessarily expect it to come from with my background. But I've been a fierce protector because I think it's important. I'd be the same as governor.
Great. Thank you so much for that thorough response. So I wanted to go ahead and ask you about the recent executive actions that have led to the detention of students such as Mahmoud Khalil. What concrete steps will you take to promote the safety and First Amendment rights of Muslim students and others expressing pro-Palestinian views on campus? How will you ensure that they are safeguarded from unjust actions by both federal authorities and university administrations?
Look, I've been very, very deliberate in my actions as a mayor and a council person, and as a governor, to opine on things that I have control over. Okay. I think in the current situation that I'm in today, I'm hired to pave streets and make the city safe and make sure the fire department works. And that's what the kind of things I speak to. With regards to a specific person or incident, let's put that aside for 1 second and talk specifically more about what my actions would be as a governor as it relates to New Jersey instead of an individual person in a different place. I am a fierce protector of the First Amendment rights. I think First Amendment and organizing and free speech are very important to higher education and organizing. I say that regardless of what room I'm into. I think as long as things are peaceful and civil, any sort of conversation is fair because I think that dialogue is important. And I've been vocal on that, and that wouldn't change. That's where I stand.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, you have really built a platform that's policy focused. You've opined about the structure of the New Jersey Supreme Court and the partisan balance about that. You spoke a lot about representation in government. One thing that I'm well aware of as the president of the New Jersey Muslim Lawyers Association is that you appointed 2 Muslims to the Jersey City Municipal Court, and the current chief judge is a Muslim Egyptian. What is the importance of diversity in government, and would you commit today to appointing the first Muslim to the New Jersey Supreme Court, the first Muslim county prosecutor, other Muslims at the top levels of government under your administration?
Let me tell you something about my track record and then commitments around that. My belief is that it is very, very important to have diversity and have leadership positions that reflect the community that it serves. Okay. The first qualification, though, is being somebody that fits from a qualification standpoint, meaning that they have the ability and the skill set to do those jobs in a perfect way for what the goal and agenda is. My track record in Jersey City speaks for itself. I never sought out any individual person based on race or ethnicity or religion, never. But what I've tried to do is create a big tent so that people can compete and that create a foster environment and also recognize the fact that diversity is a good thing. It would be hard for me to say to you today because I'm never going to say something that I can't unequivocally keep and say that I am going to define a Supreme Court judge based on religion or race or gender, because I think that would be a disservice and dishonest, anybody who tells you that. What I can tell you is that I have a track record of actually speaking to diversity better than anybody else. And I'll go back to the fact that the most common religion of the judges that I've appointed is Muslim, as a matter of fact, on the Jersey City Municipal Council. And that's coming again from somebody that you probably wouldn't normally think if you were thinking of who's the most likely person to appoint Muslim judges and Muslim council people, because I think that I have great relationships there. I've been appreciative of that relationship, how much I've learned, how inclusive they have been to me. And I return that favor by recognizing all that they do, meaning the Muslim community, and I'm a fierce protector of them. I think that if I was in that position, you would have an ally in leadership positions throughout an administration. I don't think I'm prepared today to tell you this or that specifically, because I think it's unfair to do both for your community and for any administration coming in. But what I can tell you is that my administration will reflect the city and the state, and I have a track record of doing that.
Thank you so much, Mayor. Because I think this question will be pretty easy for you, I'm going to sort of ask two questions.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So one is, will you veto any bills supporting anti-Semitism definition that includes IRA?
I've answered this extensively, okay? Now, let me just tell you two things on this. The first is, and again, we answer everything straightforward, and 6 candidates for governor, the one person who has spoken most frequently about this and gotten the most pushback is me, okay? Because I'm very vocal on the fact that I don't think the IRA bill is productive, okay? I think that a bill that specifically speaks to one religion only is not a good thing. And something that speaks to what you can or can't say about other countries is not a good thing. That's what I say. I've been the mayor for 12 years, and I have vetoed none of the city council's actions. And the reason that I don't do that is because I do respect the process on that. And it would be hard for me to say that if a legislature passes something, let's use the most extreme example, they pass something with a super overwhelming majority, and that's the clear direction that the legislature wants something to go with, that I unilaterally veto it. I wouldn't do that. That's the truth on that, because I respect not this part of legislation, but everything that the legislature does, and I have a track record of not vetoing things. That said, I've been more vocal than any of the 6 other 5 candidates with regards to my view on this legislation, and it's been my detriment, to be honest with you, in the Jewish community on that, because I'm very clear that I don't think it's good, and I've taken a lot of pushback because of that, but I'm clear on where I stand. And I think the Muslim community be clear. I don't think it's a good bill, and I'm not supportive of it. But to say that you'd veto the legislature when I haven't had a track record of vetoing, I don't think is a thing that I would commit to today.
Okay. Just as a follow-on to that question.
Yeah, happy to talk about it.
Yeah, you mentioned that if it was sort of an overwhelming majority, and I'm wondering if it wasn't, and I'm wondering if you'd also calculate the fact that that governor's veto was put there for a reason. And
yeah, I recognize. Yeah,
just really quickly, right now, the Muslim students on campus feel like their speech has been completely quashed. They're being threatened with deportation. They're being threatened with expulsion. And so criticism of Israel as a Palestinian is huge for me, because I have over 40 members of my family who have been killed in Gaza since the beginning of this genocide. And so I understand you have a general principle, but I also believe that there are instances where principles are meant legally to be, you know, and you have that power. So given that you have you have every right to say whatever you'd like to say, but I think in this case, there's a reason why. And so I'd like you to sort of maybe reflect on that a little bit. Thank you.
No, I understand, Sammy. I'm conscious of the fact of what room I'm in here and what is the politically right answer. I get it. Okay. I want people to leave here and say that He's not giving us the politically right answer. He's giving us an honest answer. And that when I go back to the fact that people might have questions, I say to them all the time, I say, call your friends and family in Jersey City in the Muslim community and ask them if I'm fair and reasonable and thoughtful around all of these issues. And I would tell you unequivocally the answer is going to be yes. I'm comfortable in saying that because I know what they're going to say. Okay. Um, and the reality is that my track record in Jersey City is not governing from executive order and not governing from the veto standpoint. It's really been about advocating for good legislation that I think is and doing my best to move pieces in that direction. And I've been very effective over that, right? And so what I've been vocal on up till now is that I don't think it's good legislation. I think it's counterproductive to both the Muslim community, the Jewish community, and truthfully, all communities. I just don't think it's good legislation. Okay. And I say that whether I'm in a Muslim room or a Jewish room or whatever, I say the same exact thing that I'm saying to you now. There's no difference in how I approach it. And I promise you, of the 5 other people running for governor, the conversation is very different in different rooms. It's not with me. Okay. And so I hear what you're saying. I am super sensitive to First Amendment rights, super sensitive. I'm super sensitive to the ability to criticize countries, the same way you should criticize the Ukraine, the same way you could criticize Russia, the same way you should be able to criticize the United States of America. You should be able to criticize Israel. And I think we're getting to a slippery slope when somebody says that we're going to legislate any way that that's not the case. I say that in every room, even when I'm in a room full of Jewish people, and they don't like it that I say that. But again, I don't want to get into a place where I'm committing to something that is not in my historical repertoire of how I govern, right? And to me, there is a legislature that you got to be respectful for. I really do believe that. You do your best to persuade them. You do your best to be forceful on this stuff. You do your best to tell them every which way. But if they come in with something like, I don't have a history of overriding the city council in Jersey City. I've been an executive for 12 years. I do my best to advocate for different things, and then I respect them if they differ with me.
Thank you very much for answering that question. Honestly, we do appreciate it. So in the last 48 hours, the Palestinian community, New Jersey community, has been grieving a great loss. It is the loss of Amir Rob, the 14-year-old who was murdered by Israel forces. And there's been a lot of misinformation, mischaracterization. And I just wanted to ask you, as governor, how would you respond to this moment that we're in?
Yeah. I would view it this way. So first of all, I would view it that I would be proactive with the community, recognizing the fact that people are in a dark place at this point and sad, and I'd be proactive. And it's the same way. Look, I have a track record as an executive here in Jersey City with outreach to this community here and being sensitive in tough moments and being thoughtful around that. I don't know what a governor can specifically do with regards to international affairs. And that's what's in his purview or his responsibility. That is the job that I'm signing up for. I want to keep perspective that every single person of the 9 million people that live here have different views on what's happening in the Middle East, I assure you. But the job that we're applying for collectively here, the 10 of us that are here, are focused on education systems and law enforcement here and safety and comfort, things that impact education, impact families here. And I would be a champion of that and make sure that people feel that there's a safe place to live here. But I don't know what more you think I can do as the governor on that front.
Well, I mean, would you put out a statement, and what kind of
course
statement would you put out? And then also in terms of the budget and our budget proposal that comes out each year, would you include in that budget the continuation of our contracts with Israeli bonds, in which we send 30 million to Israel, in which they don't have to disclose how they spend that money?
I don't know enough about that, but what I do think is that that I don't have a problem with the investments that we've made up till now. I'm not in that camp of saying that we're going to take that approach. That's the truth. I've been vocal on that. I think that there's an investment council, that independent professionals that do that stuff, and I don't know what else you think that I would have purview over regarding the Middle East situation there. I look at this stuff in a very state-centric way. How do I make the best environment for all different religions? And I don't opine on federal stuff. I've had a track record of this for 20 years in Jersey City doing this, and I think it's served me very, very well. That when people hire somebody to be the president of the United States and they hire somebody to be their congressman or congresswoman, it's specific around issues that are related to federal government and Middle East and Europe and South America. That's not the job I'm applying for. I'm applying to make sure the pension fund works, okay? And if the experts say that the pension fund is helpful because of this, then that's what I'm going to do. That's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to let political views get in the way of that. And I've never had a history of that. So it would be disingenuous for me to tell you that all of a sudden I would.
Thank you, Mayor. Moving to a question, based on these international events, though, they do have some ripple effects here on home. You talked about freedom of speech and college campuses. But besides that, we have seen post-October 7th a rise of anti-Muslim hate, anti-Arab hate, anti-Palestinian racism.
Definitely.
Do you think the state is doing enough to combat hate?
No.
What would you do differently?
No, I go back to the fact that I don't think a bill, I say this often with the IRA bill, that I think that the fact that it speaks to one community only is counterproductive, okay? Because I see it in Jersey City, that you do see more hate crimes, not only around the Jewish community, but you see it around other communities, including the Muslim community. And I think there needs to be more resources to help and feel security. Look, I would tell you in Jersey City, one obvious thing is that we have spent a tremendous amount of money to provide security around mosques, especially during sensitive times. I think that's a good opportunity for the state to shoulder some of that burden and send a message that we're conscious of safety and we're saying we want these communities to be safe and feel that way, etc. So, yeah, I'm sensitive to the fact that there's been an increase in hate and language around Muslims. And again, I take the First Amendment very, very seriously, but at the same time, don't tolerate things where any community feels that they're physically threatened, including the Muslim community, for obvious reasons. And I think my track record speaks to that.
Thank you.
Look, the one thing I want to say, and I know that all of these questions are very nuanced questions, and I want to go back to the fact that I'm sitting here with a group of, thankfully, 159 active people in the Muslim community in New Jersey. And what I would say is that there isn't a person that has a track record that I do, period. And even though everything I say you may not love, I have a track record of being a fierce protector and fair in this community more than anybody else, and not treating it better or worse than any other community. And the reality is that if you don't believe me, call your friends in Jersey City and ask them. And I'm a straight shooter. When you ask me a question, I tell you I could do that or I can't do that. But I will not tolerate a community feeling marginalized or hurt or picked on or hatred towards them. Those things I do not tolerate, and I would be a fierce protector of the Muslim community.
We appreciate that, Mayor, and I think that comes in loud and clear. And we do have 159 participants, but some of those are actually Islamic centers where there's watch parties. So it's actually
all right,
more than that number. But on to the question. New Jersey is a majority-minority state with a diverse Muslim community.
Yes.
So to ensure that local resources are used to support local priorities rather than fund and share personal data with the federal immigration enforcement, would you support the New Jersey Immigrant Trust Act?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, look, again, everybody's gonna, well, I don't know if everybody, I don't know, I doubt Bill Spadia said it, but like most of the Democrats, most would tell you the same thing. I mean, I have a track record in Jersey City of actually doing this, right? I mean, we were amongst the first to reaffirm our status as a place for immigrants with in 2017, when Donald Trump was targeting the Muslim community. We had probably had the largest rally in the state here in Jersey City, with speakers and bringing attention to the closeness of the Muslim community with all the other communities here in Jersey City. Some of you probably attended that. And that was when Trump was pushing the Muslim ban, if you remember that. I mean, so the short answer is yes on the Immigrant Trust Act. I've been vocal on that, and I have a track record on this.
Thank you. So we wanted to go into education a little bit. We wanted to ask that, would you support the diversification of curriculum in districts and including Palestinian and Islamic studies, to help balance the narrative and the way that the history of Palestine is being taught?
Yeah, so I am not again, I don't know enough of what the proposed curriculum is. I think more education opportunities are good. I do definitely think that exposure to different perspectives is good. I can't give you a blanket yes or no. I'm not an education expert. We have experts that do that, and I don't know what the curriculum looks like. But if you're curious whether I think that more exposure to different Muslim culture and perspectives, yeah, that's a good thing. I mean, look, in Jersey City, it was our administration that advocated for the holidays to be closed and days off for all the Jersey schools, because we had a large Muslim population here in education. It was our administration that did the first iftar dinner ever in Jersey City at City Hall. It was our administration that has changed parking regulations almost citywide to accommodate prayer services on Friday. I mean, the track record around sensitivity in education for me is second to none. But the honest answer is I would need to see what the curriculum looks like, and we would have education experts as part of it, as well as people from the Muslim community.
Thank you, Mayor. We're nearing our time, 9:45. We want to be respectful of your time. One last question before we give it up to you to wrap up with your final thoughts. Economy is a major issue, and Muslim Americans throughout the state feel similarly about this. Like other New Jerseyans, the cost of living is too expensive now. What are your thoughts on how to support the economy? What are your thoughts on property taxes and in general? How would you lower the cost of living in the state?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things. I think first, the reality of the conversation is that you have 564 municipalities in New Jersey, and you need some consolidation. There's just too many layers of government, and you pay for it day in and day out. I think second of all, we value our schools, and education is important. The Muslim community, I mean, in Jersey City, I mean, you think about the Muslim community here, it seems like, every child is on a trajectory to be a doctor or a lawyer. Sad, you might be the only one that's not, right?
Only one in the mosque, right?
It's true. It's true. So education is important. We need to revisit the education formula and rethink how we're approaching some of this stuff to encourage younger families the opportunity to stay here. It's a big part of your property taxes. So how do we reposition that formula with making sure we're still delivering world-class schools? You pay corruption tax in New Jersey because of the system of government here, and we need to reform that. And look, our administration, I want to highlight the fact that we, as an administration, have been. Let me take a step back further. We are running and supporting Muslim candidates in New Jersey for state assembly at an unprecedented rate. The former Assemblywoman Sadat Jaffer is a supporter and endorsed my campaign early because of similar views. And I want to go back to closing that the Muslim community and my relationship is very close, and there's a trust there because I think that I've delivered on everything I've said in a fair and reasonable way. Cost of government, consolidation, corruption tax, driving that down by getting good people involved. And I think that accountability and sunlight to the process that governs how we introduce and make our budgets in New Jersey is very, very important. And those three things could be hugely helpful to changing the paradigm on affordability.
Thank you so much, Mayor Fulop, and we do want to make sure we thank you for coming on. You were scheduled to appear at the start of the forum, and you also had the last word, so we're very appreciative. And we just want to remind everyone that today's forum was for the upcoming primary election that's on June 10th. And so it's very important that our community go out and vote. And we appreciate all the candidates that came here today. Once again, this was a forum organized by the New Jersey Muslim Civic Coalition, the New Jersey Muslim Lawyers Association, PACC, the Palestinian American Community Center, and CAIR Action. And so we're really appreciative of all the candidates for coming and speaking the truth to their platform and sharing their views with all of us.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mayor. Very informative and really appreciate it. And also in closing out, we can't understand, and Mayor, you're welcome to drop off at this point. We're just going to be closing out the program.
All
So
right.
thank
I just want to say
you so much for your
thank you
time.
guys for the help, and apologies on the technology difficulties at the beginning. And if there's anything or more I can do, or conversations that anybody wants to have further on any of this, I'm very accessible at stephenphillip.com, and looking forward to talking to you all. Okay.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Mayor. Have a
Thanks.
great
Bye.
night. Yeah, so it's upon us to make the change that we want to see. When we helped to start up 46,900 votes for uncommitted, all of these folks took notice. And one of the reasons why they all joined this call is because they know that the margin of victory this time will be less than that in all likelihood. It might be 10 or 20,000 votes, who knows? But the Muslim community certainly has the ability to actually decide which one of the people we just heard from wins. But only if we actually go out, vote together, and actually vote in the primary, which is June 10th. But many people are going to be getting their vote by mail ballots very, very soon. So this is just the beginning of the dialogue and conversation. We hope that everyone on this call will tell everyone they know, 10, 20, 30 people, 100 people, to go out and vote. If we can vote together, even better. But that's how we get power. That's how we've been able to make these movements recently. And we're inshallah hopeful that this is going to continue on. Halima, if you had any final thoughts, and then we'll just close out with the dua. If Saad, if you can close us out with the dua at the end. But Sister Halima, if you can do that. And I'm from the New Jersey Muslim Civic Coalition. This is a coalition that we formed coming out of the major masajid of New Jersey, over 65 of them coming on and writing multiple letters on behalf of the community, then deciding that we needed a C3 and a C4 arm to discuss these types of political issues. And so what we have in front of us is now an opportunity as a Muslim community in New Jersey to really work together. So I'll pass it off to Sister Halima, and I bid everybody a good night. Salam.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to address a question that was in the chat about why we didn't have Green Party candidates. At the time that we were setting up the forum, there were no candidates that were on the Green Party ticket. And I do believe that we did reach out when we saw that there were Green Party candidates that did come up. Unfortunately, it was so close in timing to the forum, but we are a 501c3, which meaning we would not exclude or endorse. So I just wanted to clear that up as well. Wanted to also mention that, yes, it is incredibly important to go vote, but as many of you know, a lot of people do not know what a primary is. They don't know that there is an election even happening currently. It is so incredibly important that if we're going to get one of these candidates elected so that we can have an option that we want in November, that we do outreach. PACC is doing phone banking. We've already begun. We have sessions starting as of next week, both in person and virtual, to be accommodating to the community. And I highly encourage you to go up into PACC's website, sign up for a few shifts. 6 hours in a month with each person on this call would make a massive difference in terms of doing outreach into our community, calling low propensity voters so we can identify who within our community, who in Arab Muslim community that is not typically a voter, and we can call them and make a difference by having one-on-one, heart-to-heart conversations about why it's so important to get involved in these primaries and to see the people that you want elected so that we have a better chance at winning in November, to set us up for success as we move into this next chapter. This is our tipping point. It is in our deen that we must act and leave the rest up to Allah. Semi said it best in a conversation with us and our students, where the Quran talks about only 10% of it is based in fear, 90% of it is based in hope. Why do we focus on the despair and the fear? We should be focused on the hope. We got this as a community. Now we just need to act, and we need to act together. So please sign up for shifts to phone bank. Let's get the vote out. Let's win in this primary, win in November, and create a real change in November, and be the first to divest 30 million from Israel here in New Jersey, where we're the main artery in the heart of the empire. We can do this.
Thank you so much. And one final plug-in, if anything Muslim Lawyers Association can do, you can contact us on njmla.com. We're happy to assist the community. Finally, we thank you all for joining, and we make dua to close off. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidil Anbiya wal Mursaleen. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. Allah, grant us wise guidance in our affairs and appoint for us leaders who will rule with wisdom and justice, and place over us those who fear you, are conscious of you, and who strive for the well-being of people in the state. And Ya Allah, grant us righteous, just, and God-fearing leaders who uphold truth and serve the people with integrity. Ameen. Wa sallallahu ta'ala ala khayri khalqihi wa nura arshi Muhammadin wa alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Ameen. Thank you.
Jazakallah khair, everybody. Assalamu alaikum.